video is for entertainment and demonstration purposes only. Please consult a certified automotive technician for your automotive needs. So, some might be wondering, what could I possibly be doing with my 2019 Hyundai Sonata-SE now on May 7, 2022 Saturday, with exactly 88,000 miles on the clock? Well, I will tell you what I'm doing to my 2019 Hyundai Sonata-SE now on May 7, 2022 Saturday with 88,000 miles on the clock. I am installing the PowerStop Z23 Evolution Sport Brake Kit. This particular kit comes with all new drilled and slotted rotors with all new carbon fiber ceramic brake pads with all new hardware. Before I go any further into this video, however, the thing that I must point out, and I want to clarify, first and foremost, I'm not being paid by PowerStop. I'm not getting any kind of money from them. I'm just sharing with you guys what I think works and what I think will get the job done for me. And it is the same deal with AutoZone where I got this kit from. I'll go into a few more details about that in a moment, but I wanted to make sure I put that disclaimer out there before I dig any deeper into this car in this video. Now, throughout the course of last night, I actually already did this side so you can see what it looks like, how it should look once it's all installed. Here's the front. Here's your drilled and slotted rotor. Here's your little label telling you what part it goes on, in this case, front passenger side. Okay, same here in the back. Yeah, I wasn't going to have a lot of swing around space or good lighting or filming space. So that's why, I did this side already. But now you can already get an idea of what it looks like and what to expect. And I also want to show what the actual rotors look like, because PowerStop and all the rest, they have just generic pictures. But for me, it was kit number K7522 from PowerStop. This is what the rotors look like. And the thing to know about that kit number is this is all 4 rotors. It's a slightly different number if you want just the fronts or just the rears. And just before we get to installation, there's a couple things I want to point out about buying PowerStop brakes. Now, most manufacturers, I'll just pick K&N as an example, K&N air filters. You can go on their official website and you can buy directly from their website, and that's what I have done in the past, so warranty claims are easier if something goes amok. Create an account with K&N air filters, buy directly from them, so your order is on their records, all the rest. That's not how it works at PowerStop. All PowerStop will do is direct you to one of their authorized dealers, be it an online retailer like Summit Racing or Jegs, just to name a few. They even let Amazon carry their stuff. For me, I went with AutoZone because they're bricks and mortar, and they also allow AutoZone and Advanced Auto Parts. Now, I didn't experiment with all of their vendors, but I just picked on AutoZone in particular because that's the one that was closest to me. And when I punched in all the information, and I'll make sure that's the first link I leave in the description, is a link to the official PowerStop website where you have the options to punch in all your information. Once I punched in all my information, it says, hey, this is the kit number K7522. When I clicked AutoZone, it took me right to the AutoZone page that had that kit number, and even had AutoZone SKU number, which for AutoZone, their SKU number was 329046 for the K7522 PowerStop Evolution Brake Kit. Now, you're better off, and this is only my experience, everyone will have different experiences. When I went to AutoZone, I made the mistake of not going there with the SKU number, because when I went there, I said, hey, I want to get all 4 brakes and I want to get the kit. I did say kit. Maybe he didn't understand. But anyway, and he asked all the right questions. Did it have a manual parking brake? Not that PowerStop asked it, because the SE Sonatas, or at least for this generation, doesn't have electric parking brakes. Oh, he ordered all the right stuff. It came out to like $530-something, and then when I went back on the website home, the kit, if you buy it as the kit, it was only like $438, I think it was. So you're talking about saving at least $100. So make sure you get the kit, and if you're going to buy from bricks and mortar, make sure you get the right part numbers from PowerStop. But the other big pointer, always make sure you punch in your information. While I'm leaving links to this particular kit that I'm putting on the car today, don't just assume it's going to go on your car. Always, always, always punch in all your information, your year, your make, your model, your trim level, and answer any and all questions correctly. That's pretty much that. That's the experience I had, and it was no bad experience. And once I showed what I showed to AutoZone, they're really cool about it, yeah, okay, we'll refund you what you bought at the store and you can order the kit. AutoZone is just going to have FedEx ship it to them. It's not winter, so they can come up my driveway just fine. So I just opted to have it delivered at my house, which I didn't even expect till yesterday. The kit ended up arriving the next day, so. Alright. On with the installation already. And yes, this is going to seem bizarre, but I'm actually starting on the back because I figured, well, it's the most involved and pretty much has the most machinations. I have a manual parking brake because I have the SE trim. If you have a higher end Sonata with the electric parking brake, it's going to be a completely different set of procedures. I'm not entirely sure how they pull back a parking brake. I think it's reverse the polarity, but don't hold me to that. Get a service manual of someone who knows how to do it. The rotor will be completely different because the electronic parking brake uses the caliper. I have what is called a disc drum setup here. There's a little drum brake in here. So I'm actually going to start by popping this little plug off right here. If it will cooperate. Oh, almost got it. And there we go. And that's going to help you access the little star wheel that's in here. So that's how you do it. But I'll get more into that later on. The next thing we're going to do here is I'm going to push back the piston so I can go through the top, take this little pry bar, and because I know I'm not putting these rotors back in, or the pads rather, see, oh look how nice it slides. You can just pull it back. Got to hold this light here. It's just so hard to get good lighting in there, unfortunately. You see, I have now pushed the piston all the way back because I had just greased these not too long ago. Oh, nice. But I'm still going to take the grease out and put the better grease in there, which I'll show you in a little bit. But here on the back, both the caliper bracket and the caliper pins here are going to be 14 millimeters. And as this all unravels, you're going to see how my due diligence paid off. Making sure I kept the surfaces clean. Putting in ICs where I was supposed to. Right? In fact, I'm using all hand tools here. That's the nice thing, and you want to just be careful with everything because everything here is not cheap. Nothing here is cheap, and then, obviously, I don't have to explain, but you see, I'm doing this all in real time, nice and quick, nothing more, nothing less, and then I don't have to hang the caliper, I can just put it aside like so. Here we go. Put the bolts in the magnet tray. And then, I don't know how well you're going to see it back here. Probably not. Like I said, my videos are mainly for people who are already mechanically inclined. But you get the idea. You have your 14 millimeter here, and another down here, and that's how you're going to take off this here caliper bracket. So here's what the bolt looks like. Okay, the one that holds on the caliper bracket. I know it's a little bit of surface rust, but no worries. I'll just hit that with the wire wheel off camera, and then this bracket should slip off like so. And if you're wondering what I was talking about moments ago about having previously applied anti-seize, the very quick story: when I had about only 25,000 miles on this car, all my rotors warped for whatever the unknown reason. Hyundai was kind enough to cover it. Okay, great. And then all was well. All new rotors, all new pads, all the rest. And then another 25,000 miles later, somewhere in the 50,000 mile range, 55 I want to say, they warp again. But I wasn't going to go to Hyundai again. So these are actually the Power Stop OE. But I still had a lot of meat left on my stock Kia Hyundai pads. So I just cleaned up the pads, re-lubed the pins, all the rest, just deglazed the pads with some 400 grit sandpaper, and I went on my way. Now, I don't know what Power Stop's pads are made of. They do have their own material, so maybe that's why these warped as soon as they did. To Power Stop's defense, I got all 4 of those rotors, so the dealer would have probably won for a pair, because I looked at where some of these parts are made. Like if you look at the stock 16-inch wheels that these Hyundai Sonata-SEs have, made in China, and so is their rotors, or at least the ones for the lower end Sonatas. If I'm not going to pay an exorbitant dealership price for what's turned out to be made of the same recycled Chinese metal that I can get at the box stores. Power Stop is the better Chinese-made stuff. I will give them that. And again, I got both of their rotors for what the dealer wanted for just 1, and for a little bit more now, I'm going to get something that's going to far supersede any OE quality. Their drilled and slotted rotors are a better quality material. Some are made in China, but the drilled and slotted come from a completely different line, completely different QC. I think I'm going to have a very good experience. Okay, so enough on that. Now, the thing about this access hole is because of the way the cables come to it, it's flipped around. But I think this is the side with the reverse thread, so that way the only thing that's mirror imaged is the position of the hole. Now here on the driver's side, you have to have it around the 10 to 11 o'clock position. But on the passenger side, you're going to have it around the 1 to 2 o'clock position thereabouts. Now I tried to get the camera to see into there. I can't, but this is why I'm holding up this light. But the threads are reversed, so that way it's still the same on both sides, in that you're going to pry on the top to loosen it and the bottom to tighten it. Now I have to fandangle with this a little bit off camera, but I'm going to keep going. You got to be careful about using the pull screws if this has it, which I don't think this does, because then you could rip those pads out. So you don't want to do that. I'm going to keep doing this, and you see, because of the anti-seize I applied on the flange when I put these rotors on previously, it comes right out. It'll come right out if I let go of that light. Like I said, you want to be careful prying this out. I think I got to, at least I can turn the rotor now. You see, I'm going to keep doing this. Sometimes the screwdriver will skip. You got to make sure the hole is just in the right position, so you get the flat blade right on there. And bingo was his name-o. And now with the rotor out of the way, you can see what I was talking about. These are your parking brake shoes. Now here's the thing. This is actually 2 shoes on one whole piece of spring steel. And you have a little clip in the bottom here if you need to take it off. I'm just going to advise you get a service manual if you need to replace it. But the only other advice I have, if you feel you need to replace this, let's say it's worn or maybe the material's cracked, get it from the dealer. You want to get OEM, you want to get it from Hyundai. And lo and behold, the self-adjuster says LH for left hand. So there is a left hand and a right hand. The only thing that is a mirror image, if you will, is what position you're going to have that access hole in. And this is what I was turning, by the way. You see, when you go on the bottom, it spreads it out more. That's how it puts it tighter against the inner drum. And when you pry on the top of that access hole like I was showing, that's how I was loosening it. See, it turns it the other way. Obviously I have nothing to pry against right now, but you get the idea. You're going to hit this with some brake clean, wipe up that backing plate, and then for the drum, not the drum, the hub, I'm going to take some brake clean and an old toothbrush, clean up all the anti-seize here. And the reason I'm not going to show that is because, well, I don't think anyone really needs to see that, and I'm not going to create backsplatter of brake clean on this new camera here. So that's going to be the next step. Let me get this cleaned up. Well, there she be, all nice and clean. Now, it doesn't have to be polished with a mirror finish, but if you have lots of chunks of rust that can cause lateral run out, that's what you got to watch out for, which I have none of over here. Because, everything I've used so far was such crap that, these are coming apart every 30,000 miles, and they're smart enough to do all the stuff I'm doing right now. So, and generally speaking, the car is not even 2.5 years old that I regularly take to the wash. So, just never had the chance to ever really get too bad. So I'm just putting some anti-seize on the hub. That's where rotors freeze, so you don't have to put anti-seize on the whole hub. I guess you still can if you want. Some say that can cause lateral run out. I doubt that it would, but I'm just going to put it here on the hub where you only really need it, because that's where rotors and wheels seize up on, not so much the mounting flange. Okay, so here is the new rotor. Now, I just sprayed a rags and brake clean, cleaned up my gloves really good. You don't have to put brand spanking new gloves. You know, you don't have to go too crazy because these gloves ain't cheap right now. But you can still do what you feel is the right thing to do. So, get a clean new rag or a shop towel, whatever works for you. Remember, this inside part where the drum rides, remember you have shoes going up against this, so this is all going to be coated. It's all very quick spritz. That's all you got to do on this side here. Notice I'm using that bag to protect it from the ground. Any potential contaminants that might be on the ground. And likewise here on this side, just a quick wipe down just to get any protective coating. I don't know if it's Cosmoline that they use. Doesn't matter, but you don't want it to mingle with your brake pads. Simple as that. Now let's get this drum on the hub, shall we? Okay, so as we are preparing to put this rotor on, make note of where these screw holes are. You don't have to reuse the screws, but they're still a good thing to use so you know exactly what position your rotor's in. So let's say you get some lateral run out later and you decide you can shim it with something like the brake line toolkit. You have a good reference point. So always make use of that, whether or not you want to put the screws in. Screws are just there to help keep the rotors in during assembly of the car, but it's mainly the job of the wheel and the lug nuts. So you can run without them, and living in the Northeast, all these do is just rust in and become a nuisance. I end up drilling them out anyway, so yeah, I just never put them back in. So yeah, you can absolutely run without them. And on it slips. Now, you want to be in the right point with those shoes. So a trick I'm going to use, well, I should get actual hex nuts. This is the M12 by 1.5 thread pitch. You know, these threads go all the way down the stud that I can just use to snug it. I'm not going to torque them or anything because I'm not trying to take the run out. But just enough to keep this rotor snug to the hub. Yeah, when you hear one click of the hammer, that's it. All you need, again, just to keep it, you know, smacked up against the hub. And now we're going to adjust the shoes inside. Okay, now you already saw where this was, and like I said, you're going to pry in the bottom. A much quicker trick for me, because remember, you don't have any clickers to worry about. There's no self-adjusters. I'm just going to keep turning this so I feel a good amount of resistance. Now, I had to wind this down quite a bit to get that other drum off. Well, rotor drum, whatever the hell you want to call it. There we go. So you see, I can't turn it now. Now I'm going to wind it down slowly in little increments, whatever increment works for you, until you can just start to turn it again. Just like so. Now, bear in mind, when you put the wheel on, the wheel is like a lever. So, just because I'm having a hard time turning it right now, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not still going to be spinning freely. And this is as good a time as any to check since you don't have the caliper or the pads on. Not that that would create any drag because I adjusted the other one off camera. And this leads into another point that I probably should have made much earlier on to all you manual parking brake users out there. Make note of where your brake pedal is. If you had a good strong parking brake, do make note of that and make note of how this might have felt. But you see, once it's free enough to turn, like I can still turn this. I don't need to use a pry bar or anything to turn this. This should be good. And this felt pretty much the same way. Now it's hard to really explain over the camera, but I'll go to the other side very quickly to show you how freely the other side turns when I have the wheel on. So here we are back on the passenger side I did last night. Now, I had that same amount of resistance where I could barely turn it by hand, but once I had this wheel on, look at that. Look how much it still turns even after I give one little, turn it like the Wheel of Fortune. Look at that. So this is what I'm talking about. And you might hear a little bit of squeal, a little goose honking as I call it, but bear in mind, when you're turning just the rotor and the wheel on it, this wheel being bolted to that and all this rubber here acts like a vibration absorption, or like it absorbs the vibration, almost like the rubber band that you put around the rotor or a drum when you turn them on a lathe. It's kind of the same effect. So I'm having nothing of the sort here. So this is good, and now I'm just going to very quickly bolt the wheel on the other side, see if it has the same feel, check how the parking brake feels, and then our rear rotor installation shall be complete. So here we are on the passenger side. I just bolted on the wheel off camera and has the same sound to it. Same amount of resistance, same amount of free spin. Again, it's hard to show the camera. This is something you do by feel and you show somebody, you mentor someone. You know, just like when I had a senior mechanic show me how it's supposed to feel. And bear in mind, I don't have the caliper on, but yeah, this is about right. And the best confirmation is then, of course, checking your parking brake. Here's my foot brake right here. I'm going to try to hold the camera to the light while I do this, but as you see as I'm pressing the pedal down, you know, I'm like halfway down and I got very good resistance. You know, I'm not like to the floor. So I think this is good. Obviously, the best way to test this is find a hill. If you're just to the floor and or it's not holding, then yeah, you have to go back and tighten it. It's a pain in the neck, but once you get it properly tuned, remember, it's not like service brakes on a full-blown drum brake. So once you get it set right, it'll work very well. And when you use quality rotors and pads like I'm using, this is not going to be a problem again for a very long time. Alrighty then. So that pretty much does it in terms of the initial install of the rotor. Yes, I put the lug nuts back on, took the wheel back off, so I can hold it nice against the flange when I go put the caliper bracket back on, which is the next thing we're going to do. Make sure you put this itty bitty little plug in because it will keep water and crap out. Alright, so now we're here with the caliper bracket. And what we're going to do, obviously you want to pull the old pads out first, or whatever means necessary. Yep, that's one way. There you go. And just to show what crap today's rotors are, look how much meat is left in these pads. The fronts are a bit questionable, but the bottom line is I still think the braking system as a whole could have easily gone to 100,000 miles. And then you pull these clips off, the anti-rattle clips. Obviously, your new one's going to come. Obviously, the kit comes with new ones. Something I want to make note of on the pins, because one of them is not like the other. And what I mean by that, one pin has this rubber thing here, the other doesn't. So make note of this if you decide you want to pull this bracket assembly completely apart and maybe you want to sandblast it to get it really nice. I don't think that's necessary. I have very minimal crud here. I'm just going to hit this with a wire wheel. In fact, I have a conical wire wheel on my drill press downstairs. So here it is. Got them all nice and cleaned up. Hit it with the wire wheel and the drill press downstairs. I already did one pin. I already re-greased one pin off camera. Now, like I said, one pin has the rubber thing, the other doesn't. So the thing you want to watch out for is, you know, mix them up. So I'll pull this rubber off. Be careful, don't tear this boot here. What you want to do next, you want to scoop out that old grease somehow. There's many ways you can go about this. I put this here Allen wrench over a rag. Try to scoop it out that way. Sometimes you can use the pin. Press it in, you know, but you don't want to hydro lock the pin either. People think, oh, the more grease the better, and they can just stuff grease down the hole. You don't want to do that. Like I said, it's still fairly fresh grease, but I want to replace the grease. And speaking of grease, this is what Power Stop comes with. I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up. It's a ceramic silicone grease, but so is this Permatex. But why get the itty bitty little packets when you can get an entire bottle right here. So here it is. This is the Permatex Ceramic Extreme Brake Quartz Lubricant, all synthetic, 24125. You might have seen me use this in the video where I dealt with the brake rotor and the whole ABS sensor on my truck. So it's really good stuff to have. So anyhow, there's a few different ways about cleaning this that I just showed you. Another way is take a can of brake clean with the straw attached to it. You can shoot right at it, and that should blast some of it out. And the reason I didn't show any of that is because I don't want to splatter any stuff on the camera. Okay, so this is all clean out. This is the can of brake clean I was talking about here. You see, you blast it. Obviously, you point it away from yourself. So I'm going to take a little bit of that grease right here. Just put a little bit on this end of the boot here. See, just like so. Maybe help if I move the whole thing closer to the camera. Right, and then we'll put this in here, like so. And that's the only way that's going to go in. And then I like to take, see, this comes with the brush here. See, it's purple in color. That's that purple stuff. You were wondering what that was. Give it a good coating, just like so. You don't necessarily have to use the brush if you don't want to. But that's how I like to coat it. And then I like to do a twisting action when I put it in. This helps coat the whole pin evenly. Obviously, check to make sure. See, it's all nice and even. See, this is good. Moves nice and freely, and that's what you're looking for. Right, so the next step in all of this, you'll see up here, you want to put the anti-rattle clip on, like so. See how I have it on? So that just clips right in. And then after that, we're going to take some of this. I'm going to put it right where the ears of the brake pad go on. I'm hoping I'm zoomed in enough, but I know the little screen on the camera does it no justice. And then when I do it after the fact, then I realize I'm zoomed in too far. Lord knows I've made that mistake enough of times. So hopefully, and now we're going to bolt this back onto the knuckle. So in the interest of saving some time here, I already got the bottom bolt, you know, a good amount started. But here is the bolts, the bracket bolts. I cleaned them up downstairs. Put a little coating of anti-seize on the threads so this won't rust. Oh, one thing, when you go to clean these bolts, watch out for this washer here. I almost lost this washer, and that would have sucked some major, well, I'll let you fill in the blanks on that one. But you're going to get these nice and snug. Get them nice and tight. Like I said, you know, you don't have to wail on these with power tools at all. I don't understand people who do that. I can understand, man, maybe an air ratchet doesn't have a lot of output, you know. But like I said, you don't have to wail on these, and these do have a torque spec, which I should have, and I don't. But I'll just do what most common people don't. Well, most common people do, which is they don't have the service now. You get what I mean. Anyhow, snuggy, snug, snug. Okay. See, doing this again, all in real time, all with hand tools. So we have a 14mm socket here. This is the part where I stand up to pull up on it. There we go. And likewise over here. Okay, so that gets the bolts nice and secure. This is the inboard pad. They're actually the same. The only difference is you have the squealer. Now, the best thing to always do is know how it might have come off. But let's say it's not the car's original set of brakes and someone else put it on wrong. How do you know what the true right answer is? Well, what I was taught once, you have your squealer, right? This is the direction the rotor's going to turn, right? So when the pad wears down enough for the squealer to touch it, you kind of want it to bend away. Because you have the squealer down here, the rotor's turning this way, right? What's it going to do? It's going to suck in that squealer, and it can then, gouge your rotor. Mind you, most of today's rotors, you get rid of them when the pads are ready to go. And especially in the case of this car, the rotor, or rather, the rotor's going to go long before the pad. So you just got to pop this in. You can't see behind there so well, so I'm not going to show you this one. But I just wanted to point out for the inboard pad how to place the squealer, where, and why. Alright, so this is how I put it in. Sometimes you gotta give it a bit of a twist. Other times it just pops right in. You can see what I'm doing here. There you go. Just pops in like so. And then what I like to do as well is I like to put a little bit of grease on the anti-rattle shims back here. I'll show you. This is what I'm doing here. Just coat that with some grease like so. Do likewise on the other side, and then what we're going to do afterwards, now this will help the caliper slide right on, and it provides lubrication for these points right here, but you see, you slip it on, gotta pull into the pin, there you go, slips on nicely, and then like I said, I'm doing this all. You might have to grab this with a wrench. So far, I've never had to. Get this snug. Get that snug. Do note that this hose could be in your way, so you might need an extension. You're better off using maybe a deep socket. Yeah. And yeah. There we go. So the back is done. And now you see why I did the back first. So a few more machinations, adjustments. Okay, so on with the front. I know the back was a bit lengthy. I know by this point in the video we're probably on the other side of a half hour. But as I said just moments ago, there was a lot more machinations involved in the back. Simply not the case in the front. And since I already showed all the nitty-gritty stuff in the back, I'm just not going to show it again here in the front. I'm just going to show you the basics of what you got to do to get to what you need to. You're at the front rotor here, right? So, something to make it easier to access those bolts, okay, I'm going to cut my wheel to the left. Okay, so with the steering wheel cut to the left, since we're doing the left side of the rotor, I don't need the biggest pry bar, but it might take a little bit of doing with this smaller one. Let's see if I can get in here with this one. Same as before, find something to pry on. Maybe I gotta do this. Here we go. Yeah, it's getting pushed back good now. Alrighty. Same as before. Ooh, and apparently they pushed it back so much that it overflowed the reservoir. The brake fluid reservoir. You see it right there? Oops. No worries. We'll just pump it up slowly. Now, if you're doing all four brakes at once, be mindful of this. So, like, maybe do the front or rears first, whatever you choose. Then pump the brakes to have the pistons come back out so you don't do what I did just now. But, hey, at least we know there's fluid in the reservoir. But, yeah, always have brake fluid, too, when you do this job. With your 14mm socket, okay, you get that out. Only this time, you're not really going to have a place to rest the caliper, so what you're going to have to do when you get the caliper out, take the bolts out, the caliper should slide right out, especially mine, and I'm just going to zip tie the caliper to that coil spring up there. Okay, caliper is zip tied to the coil spring. Now I'm going to refocus my attention down here. Yeah, get these pads out. Hope the calipers aren't sticking. This outboard pad. At a quick glance, the meat looks somewhat decent, but not so much in here. Why is that? The pins are moving. Who knows why. But these are the stock Hyundai pads. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I couldn't tell you why. But anyhow, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your 17mm socket. And these are actually bolts right here. You can actually see them from here and here. So you're going to take out these two 17mm. Well, they take a 17mm head. I don't know what the actual size of the bolt is, but a 17mm socket. You're going to take those out next. Okay, you just got it hanging by a thread just to show you. Get the caliper out, caliper bracket rather. Got that out. Take the caliper bracket out. Here's your bolt. Much like the rear one, you have this washer. Make note of it. Put it aside safely. And like the ones in the back, I'm going to run a wire wheel over all of this. So with the caliper bracket out of the way, I didn't have to tap the rotor. Out it goes. And as you can see here, we do got just a little bit of rust I'd like to clean up. No more than the usual. You know, I'm going to clean up around here with the toothbrush and brake clean like I did before. And like I said, over here you can get creative as needed. But make sure you clean up this flange really good here. So I knocked most of the junk off of it. Hopefully it's not shining so bright the camera can't pick it up. Now it's seeing it. See, I have a little bit of rust here. I take this brush here. I think it's like a 1 inch wide. I don't know, but this is a really good wire brush. My dad gave me this brush almost 15 years ago. See, this knocks all the rust out. And what's cool about this is this can fit nice and snug in here. So if you had some rust in here, you could just do that too. I had to do that on the other side. Don't really have to do it here. But yeah, just clean this up nicely and then we can get the rotor ready. Okay, so the flange is now all nice and cleaned, and I even already put the anti-seize all around the hub. Okay, here's the rotor put on. Again, I secured it with the lug nuts, but here it is in all of its glory. So now with the rotor on, next we deal with the caliper bracket. Now, I already showed you what I did in the back, so I'm not going to show it again here. But you know all the rest, the clips, the grease, the wire wheeling of where you put the clips. I don't need to show all that again. So, with the magic of editing, here is the caliper bracket, all nice and cleaned and relubed and ready to bolt back on to the knuckle. So here it is, bolted back onto the knuckle. I even slipped the brake pads on. Clips actually kept falling out, so had to take it on and off a couple times. Really had to fight it, but as you can see here, I won the fight. Got the back of the pads all lubed up as well. So now I just got to put the caliper back on. Okay, caliper installed. Okay, sliding nicely. And speaking of slide pins, just remember, like the back, one of them is not like the other. So do one pin at a time, or make note which one came from where if you're going to clean the whole caliper bracket. So here is everything completed. Caliper installed. My brake job is completely done now. Yeah, I put the back wheel back on. But the other thing I want to show, now I monitored the level of this very carefully as I was pumping up the brakes. Surprised it didn't drop as much as I thought, but always be on top of that, especially when you had a spillover like that. Not that you dumped out too much fluid and now you're sucking air back in and, well, all the other headaches you'll get from that. So do be mindful of that. The final process involved for this particular kit, and many brake kits will do something very similar. They have a break-in process or a bed-in process. Now, in the case of power stop, different kits will have different procedures. For example, if you're only getting their OE style, they're only going to recommend 30 miles an hour to 5 miles an hour 30 times, given 30 seconds in between. But you come over to this kit, it says, for the first time around, do 5 aggressive decelerations from 40 miles to 10 with no cooling in between. And then after that, you're going to do, then it says do 5 moderate stops from 35 to 5. And then after that, drive around 5 minutes. Read the instructions. Always read the instructions. And who knows, maybe the Z23 kit, it'll have a different procedure on, let's say, a truck. So again, Any new kit you always read the instructions. Hell, sometimes the instructions will change over time for the same kit. So what I'm saying is, anytime you install a new kit, read your instructions. And some final things to point out, such as torque your wheels to proper specs. Look at your owner's manual. You don't have to buy a service manual. Your owner's manual will tell you your torque specs. Now, in the case of my car, it has a range. It says use 79 to 94 foot-pounds. I go in the middle of that scale. I torque mine to 85. Another thing, taking wheels on and off. Try not to do it after you just got off the road, and try to let your rotors completely cool. I'm pointing this out because my rotors just so happen to warp when I did the oil change at 81,000 miles. Not at 81, 86. How ironic is it that my attempts to take care of my car is what kind of screwed me here and forced me to pull this trigger a little sooner than I wanted to. And also, try torquing them when it's up in the air. I mean, at least if you get, get the wheel mounted to the surface, but don't use impact guns to tighten them. I'm going to just make it its own video using torque sticks, torque wrenches, all the rest, because enough people have asked me about it. That's my recommendation. And obviously when I'm torquing the back, you can use the parking brake, and there's a good chance to see if the parking brake is tight enough. If you're only trying to put 85 foot-pounds of the lug nut and the wheel is spinning and your parking brake's set, it's not tight enough. So that's the other thing that you got to do. Test drive, do the braking procedure, test your parking brake, all the rest. In fact, before you go braking in your brakes, make sure you have a working emergency brake. That's always a good idea. And that's pretty much it. Just use common sense. And as I referred to the bed-in procedure, make sure your path is clear. Like, I had no qualms about taking all day to film this because now it's nighttime in the mountains. The roads are pretty empty. I can do what I have to do. Use your own discretion. Plan a route. Plan a path. Because these instructions are very clear about, how you don't want to come to complete stops, all the rest. Again, read your instructions. I've mentioned in the past that I can't really do driving videos with this camera, but even if I could, for the very obvious reasons, I am not going to film that. Not to mention, there are plenty of other people who film themselves doing that, so there's plenty of videos on the tube or Rumble, what have you. That's pretty much that. Hope this was helpful, and to anyone who was curious what a power stop brake kit looked like, or at least for this car, well, now you got to see it. Hopefully you liked it. Sorry if this video was a bit lengthy, but I wanted to show there was a lot of important things that needed to be shown, and I made sure they were shown. So, again, I hope this was helpful. Any and all input is greatly appreciated. Have a great day. Be safe out there, and don't be a stranger.